welcome to our final pre-GenCon recording panel. I am one of the co-hosts for Darker Days Radio. I'm Crystal Mazur, and I'm here for the TTRPG Mentorship panel. I have two panelists with me who are absolutely amazing people, and I'm super excited to have them on. And I'm going to have them introduce themselves. So, who would like to go first?
Carol can go first.
All right.
My name is Carol Darnell, and I am a freelance editor. I've worked for many publishing companies, including Third Eye Games, and been doing this since 2011.
Awesome.
Very cool. I am Eloy Lasanta, and I have been publishing since 2008 ish. And I did a little bit of freelancing before that. And I've designed a bunch of stuff and freelanced with a bunch of other companies. And I teach. I do a lot of it. It's a ton of stuff.
He has a lot of stuff all over the place.
I try.
All right. Welcome. I'm super excited to get into this. All right. Announcements. Again, our Gen Con panels. I've been posting in the Gen Con Facebook group with the panel numbers, specific ones that you can find. However, Darker Days Radio is hosting two panels at Gen Con. The first one is Thursday at 11 a.m., and that is nostalgic horror. That is a panel focused all on how Stranger Things made everybody feel when it first came out, which was that, aww, I missed that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that had such a strong pull. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And so I decided to dedicate an entire hour and a half to that.
Nice.
So we still have tickets for that, so please consider coming in if you have that time free. If you have to leave early, that's totally fine too. Totally understand. It's a convention. It's very chill. And then our second panel is on Saturday, and I have a whole bunch of awesome people on that, and that is Gothic Horror. It's at 10 a.m. I have two individuals from Hunters Entertainment, Knoxweiler Birth, as well as Markia McCarty, and they are amazing individuals. And I also have Brian W. Holland from Chaosium, who are we're going to be talking about all things gothy horror and looking at not only Vampire the Masquerade, which is what everybody defaults to, but a whole bunch of other things because there are some amazing gothic games out there. So does anyone have anything that they're running or want to promote for Gen Con?
Well, I will be at the Ennies Friday night, and I am looking forward to seeing a lot of people there. So you can find me there.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I have a few different things. I am doing first off, my company Third Eye Games. We're gonna have our own table where we'll be selling our games. It's gonna be in the Studio 2 alley, Studio 2 Publishing Alley, which is 1929 and 2029. It's they get like a lot of booths, and you just walk down and it's everybody. And I'll be in there somewhere. You can also possibly see me over at the Central Michigan University booth that'll be in the Entrepreneur Alley area. So, like, not in the hall itself, but Central Michigan University is a really dope school, and that's where I teach game design through them. That's one of the panels I'm going to be on, but I'm going to go in order real quick. So 2 p.m. on Thursday, I have Design an RPG in an Hour with me and Craig Campbell, as well as a third person, and I can't remember her name, but she's very, very awesome and very organized, and more organized than I am, as both of you know. So that's going to be Thursday at 2. At Friday at 1 is when we have the Gen Con and Central Michigan University Applied Game Design panel, where I will be speaking about what the classes are like, and we'll be unveiling some of the new courses that are coming up in the next school year that starts in the fall. So I actually just finished my final class of my summer course that I was running 30 minutes before I popped in here. So very, very fun. And it's a great course, a lot of great games coming out of there. And then on Sunday at 11, I am on a panel called Navigating Romance and RPGs. And that's going to be with Jenny Loveday and Kate Bullock. So that's going to be a lot of fun
Both
because
amazing,
they
amazing
know a lot
individuals.
about that, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm there to learn and to make funny faces while they say very deep things. So
Oh, I'm bringing my camera.
The other one that I am also hosting, it's off the books, is a freelancer
Ooh.
meetup, and that is on Saturday at 7 in the Omni Severin Hotel lobby area. It is literally just a whole bunch of us sit down. We commandeer a whole bunch of seats, and we just sit and talk and introduce ourselves, and have cool freelancer conversations and tell stories. And um, it's a come whenever you would like, leave whenever you need to.
That's
There's
dope.
yeah,
I'm gonna have to try and make it to that.
it's the fourth year I'm
Yay.
doing it, so
Oh,
this
that's
is
why I've never been to
Always
one.
yes, yeah, because you haven't been to a Gen Con in a while, and we miss you.
It's been a
Um,
Yes.
bit. It's been a bit.
so yes, anyone who, and if you are not in the industry but you are curious, please come, because you will
Yeah.
meet a whole bunch of people who either can hire you for things, or give you advice,
Mm,
or even just be somebody that you can follow on social media and can kind of motivate you.
yeah.
It's well, open and welcome to everybody who is wanting to listen and learn and meet new people or
Can I
practice.
share a story real quick?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So this is the power of networking, and I just want to share this real quick. The literally, um, all of the most amazing people that I have that I work with are all like I met them by her circumstance way before I actually ended up working with them. And Carol is actually a very good example of that because
I was actually going to talk about that if you weren't.
yeah, I met her. I think it was the second Gen Con I was at, and I had heard her on All Games Considered, so like that's where I knew her from. So I was like, oh, it's cool to meet Carol, and and after we were done talking, like we were talking games just in general, and then she goes, actually, by the way, I'm also an editor, and she gave me her card, and I was like, that's cool. I already have an editor, but thanks a lot for that. It'll be great. And then like I think it was like a year, maybe two later, like
Yeah,
my
it was
regular
2013.
yeah, my regular editor like dropped off the face of the earth, and I'm like, I need an editor, and I pulled out, I was like, Carol said she's an editor, let me call her up. And now I've like never used another editor for like the last decade now, right? So
Carol has worked on so many things, and so many things that have won Ennies, by the way. If you
right.
are like, she is an accomplished editor.
So I mean,
So
what
many.
I'm saying is that there's a lot of people
Thank
who
you.
think that going around and giving your business cards out and stuff like it's a waste of time and people just throw them away. It sometimes they don't. Like
Yeah.
you do the legwork, do the work.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll luck into somebody, and it just so happened that like I worked with Carol once, and then like she got my voice, she understood like what I was trying to say and how to make me sound better as opposed to changing what I'm saying, right? And that's what you want out of an editor. Like you don't want an editor who's trying to make it their thing. You want somebody who's
Yep.
going to take your thing and enhance it,
Yep.
right? And
If
she's very good at that, at least with my voice.
All right.
like if I could just add to that, the little tagline that I put on my website and cards is refining the writer's voice. And that was what I decided that's the core job of an editor. You're not trying to insert your interpretation. You're to trying to let the author say what they want to say the best way they can say it.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's
fair.
really my opinion of what the editor's job is.
So then my next question would be for you, Carol, then would be how many editors are failed writers?
Well, here's one. I,
And I say that in the most affectionate way possible, right?
I,
I am very much a failed editor. I am terrible at it, right? So like
I've written some things.
Mhm.
That's a very small part of what I do because I've found that finding the writer's voice, the author's voice, it was just a knack, as well as the grammar, as well as the sentence structure, as well as all
Yeah.
the I guess you could say the nitty gritty mechanical stuff of an editor.
Yeah.
But and and I really wish there was a magic recipe, but there's not.
Yeah.
Right.
You really just have to understand what the setting is. That's another key thing, I
Mm.
think. What's the world? You really have to ask yourself that, even if it's our world,
Yeah.
you know? Um,
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. That's why like I notice a lot of people who are looking for editors online. Most of the time, it's like, I need a Savage Worlds editor, or I need, a Powered by the Apocalypse editor, somebody who already is going to come in and know the
mhm,
generalities of the system and how things should be. Because the last thing you want is an editor who can't go after the line developer and be like, "Oh, here's a thing that you missed," right?
yeah.
Because that's the way that we do it at Third Eye Games is, we have the writers, and then we have the line developer go through it, then we have the editor go through it, then we have a proofreader go through it, then we have a proofreader go through it again, right?
Yep.
So like we make sure that like our stuff goes out as good as it can be. I mean, you're always going to still have mistakes here and there, like little things, but like we work really hard to get it to be as good as possible.
Yeah.
And not everybody does that. And not everybody can like has the access to that because they're using a Savage Worlds editor for their custom made system, and
Mhm.
they miss a bunch of stuff, and it's not anybody's fault, right? Because you get who you get who you can. Um, but um, but
I'm glad you
but
brought
have
that up,
yeah,
because understanding the world is not just the editor needs to ask questions.
mm,
You know, do you have a style guide? And I know that is part of the nuts and bolts, but it's
yeah,
also it says so much about the setting. And I remember a long time ago, I was advising a writer against passive voice in a lot of places. I'm like, here it makes sense because here you're actually highlighting the helplessness of the character.
right,
So passive works here.
yeah,
I mean, it's just so many things you have to read through to understand before you start picking away at the nuts and bolts.
yeah.
I mean,
I think
it's
yeah.
an important part
You
of
have to
editing, I think.
and you have to get that down, otherwise it's hard to get freelancers to do what you want them to do.
Yeah.
You have to have a style guide because before we had a style guide, before me and Carol created a style guide, um I would hire people and they would send me great stuff and I'd be like, I can't use this because it's not formatted right. Or I would have to spend a ton of time
Yeah.
making it correct, right? So
Yep.
it's definitely good to do that. I think my rule on passive voice is like steer clear of it unless you have a reason. It's okay in fiction for most of the time. If you're writing little fiction pieces, like I don't even
Yeah.
quibble about passive
But
in fiction, but like you don't say like, you know, if you're writing mechanics, definitely you want to have it be active.
yeah.
That's just kind of the thing. But yeah, like freelancers, yeah, if you go to a company and they don't give you a style guide, that
Uh,
actually is kind of a red flag there, right? Because that means they don't know what they want.
That's
And that's
why I
kind of
put
a
together
weird
the
thing.
PIP system style
Yes,
yeah.
guide specifically because PIP system's a little bit different than everything else for Third Eye
exactly.
Games. So,
You
And you
you
need
don't
that.
you don't want to you don't want to wobble. You don't want to let the
Hmm.
author wobble.
Yeah,
I mean, you really are support staff. You are,
mhm.
but it's very important, I
yeah.
think.
Well, I mean, like I'm writing a new interactive novel with Choice of Games right now.
Huh?
Unannounced title that I can't talk about yet because it's not really ready yet. But you know what they did? They sent me a contract and then they sent me a style guide because they said this is how we do
Excellent.
it, right? It's just again, if they hadn't sent me one, I would have just had a ton of questions. I would have been like, what about this? And what
Right.
about this? And what about this? So it was really good that they were like, bam, they hit me. It was like 5 pages. It was like deep. It was good.
Nice.
It was good stuff.
Good.
So definitely, as a freelancer, I keep trying to bring it back to the core. As a freelancer, you want that from a company that you are trying to work for. They need to know what they want out of you. And like me, because I am the type of person who will ask tons of questions. If you don't give me the answer, be ready to have several hour-long Zoom calls with me while you answer all of my questions. you know,
Well, getting into the mechanics of being a freelancer, what's did you all have much of a plan as far as I want to do this? Because I had a wonderful idea and not much of a plan.
Mm,
So I tripped a lot doing things. I knew I needed to set up a website. I knew I
yeah.
needed to get business cards. And I didn't really plan much else because this isn't my core job.
Mm-hmm.
I do this as I can in addition to my full-time
Right.
job.
And most of us are that way.
Yeah.
Like, my first goal was to make a game that could pay for my way to conventions. And then after it paid for my way to conventions, then it was, can I make this pay for half of my bills? And then it was, can I make it pay for all of my bills? So, and eventually it paid for not all of my bills, but it paid for all of my portion of the bills. So, because,
I
because I'm married and my wife pays the other half.
I blame
So
Eloy for a lot of the stuff that I've had to scramble for because I didn't plan for anything, nothing.
I say plans are for the weak. Plans are for the weak.
Most of
Mine
my
is not a four-letter word. I keep telling you that.
most of my freelancing adventures have been, hey, you want to work on this? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And then things happen and it ends up being a hit and they're like, oh, you want to work on more things? Yeah, sure. And then it just kept going and going and going. It
Yeah.
was not planned. And then I had to set up a website and then I have to put an
Mhm.
email together and now I have business cards and now I'm on a podcast and hosting podcast. Like one thing led to another and it all started because Eloy was like, hey, I have a project I think you would be good on because I saw you work on this OGL thing.
Well, what was the thing? Because the
it
way
was
that I
it was a
met
dark
you,
house. Yeah.
it was Dark House because I did layout
Yes, you
because
did.
I did
Oh
some freelance
yeah.
layout back in the day, and I did layout for your project with Matt McElroy.
Yep.
Yeah,
And then you were like, "Hey, I loved your writing in there. I have something."
and then I was doing kid stuff, and I was like, that sounds great. Let's do this, right? And it's so funny because like the industry is so small that like
Mhm.
Yeah.
you can forge these connections in such unexpected ways to the point
Yeah.
where like again like all of the
Yeah.
people who are closest to me in the industry I met by accident and then I
Yep.
just didn't let go.
Yep.
I was just like, you're mine now, you're my friend.
That's legit. Gen Con for me is like homecoming.
Yes.
I get to go home and see all of my friends that I only get to see once a year from all
Hmm.
over the
Yeah.
world. And then I have to wait another year before I get to do it all again.
Yeah. I would mention though, I went to PAX East for the first time last year, and it
Oh
was
yeah, that's
basically
right.
it was mini Gen Con. It was a lot of the same people that I only ever saw at Gen Con, but I saw them at PAX East, and it
Oh,
was really nice. It was
the,
nice because it was like all of these people who I normally see in chaos, but it was like I got to see them in like a normal calm area, and it was really nice actually it was my first con back. Like I hadn't done any cons since the pandemic and stuff, so it was my
yeah.
first con back selling stuff at a booth. So
I
PAX
didn't
U.
know that Gamma was in Louisville, and I live just across the river in southern Indiana.
mm,
And so I'm kind of back and forth on, am I going to go Gamma this year? Maybe.
I mean you might as well
You
then
Maybe.
if it's
should,
that
yeah.
close. Yeah.
I think I am.
I will say
um
PAX U is a really great convention too. If
mm,
you want to go. And
Mhm.
then Gamehole Con is
Ooh.
is a
Yeah.
fantastic. It's small. It
I
is.
got to go to Gamehole Con once. We got
Yeah.
to hang out a little bit there.
Don't you? That was the year we did back to back to back conventions because we did Gen Con, then we
Yep.
did
Oh God.
the Anime Con that was in Madison like 2 weeks after Gen Con, and then
Oh
we
my.
did Gamehole Con all together. And by the time got to Gamehole Con, both of us were like, "Oh my
Uh,
god, this is
I
so
remember.
much."
I remember we did it. The biggest thing I remember it was me and you, and Monica and Matt, and we were all on a panel, and two people showed up for the panel. So it was just basically
Oh.
so we just hung out with those two
Yeah.
people for an hour, and it was just fun. It,
And we
we're
took over everybody's panel because we were all just scheduled just to be the only person on the panel. We're like,
yeah.
no, no, and so we just ended up being on everybody's panel, like
Yeah.
just
It was a cool it was a
just like
cool con. I'd
panel.
go again. It was a fun con, and the cheese curds were great. So
Oh yeah, cheese curds are awesome.
cheese curds are great. So but yeah, the interesting thing that I'll say, because I think on the agenda we were supposed to talk about how we got into freelancing, or
We kind
something
of
like
we
that.
already jumped the shark,
We
but I
did.
do feel like we need to explain how the three of us came, like, one got into the industry, but also
Yeah.
like our working dynamic, because I don't know if people are going to
Yeah.
catch on immediately
Okay.
with a little bit of context as to how we know each other and how we
Yeah.
know each other so
Right.
well.
I
Right.
think we're all really giggly, so they're all gonna
Oh
get
yeah.
like they're gonna understand that we obviously know each other.
Yeah. um.
um, so what I'll say real quick is that so I started in game design from a very young age, because when I started role playing at the age of 13, I was in a group that you were not allowed to not run games. So everybody had to run.
Okay.
So because everybody wants to play. And part of what we did in that group was that we would have to obviously, like, they've played through everything that was in the modules, and so we had to make up our own stuff. So I learned how to craft adventures, how to create items, how to do new all that stuff. So I was already doing that from the get go. And I was doing it in Rifts, which is not a fun system to do things in. So, and I always tell people, like, because I know a lot of people are like, oh well, if we're going to try and get new players, we should have like a simple system for them. And I'm like, no, give them the hardest system that you can, because then it makes every other system super easy. So that's how I feel. But then I got into White Wolf pretty much immediately after that, and then White Wolf kind of opened my eyes, and I became a big fan of basically all of their lines that no one else liked. So I was into Changeling, The Dreaming, and Kindred of the East, and all of those forgotten gems that everybody wants to pretend doesn't exist.
This is my shocked face.
But
Changeling was my introduction to gaming,
yeah, I mean
but
that's the way to go. But essentially, what I learned from there was then I joined an online community called Ex Libris Nocturnus,
oh
eln.com, and I became and I actually became friends with the person who ran the site because I met him at a local game store because he lived here in Tampa, and I
Oh.
became a moderator,
yeah.
and then we started releasing stuff and creating our own zine things, and it was awesome. And then I was just like, hey, I've been doing this pretty much for free. I could probably try to get a job doing this, right? People seem to like what I'm putting out.
This was
So
before community content too, by the way.
yeah,
Yeah.
way before community content. This was when we would just release stuff onto the internet and nobody could make any money. But I wrote some really damn good stuff for the old World of Darkness. So like, and I still have the files. I might one day release them.
Nice.
But yeah, so essentially I was like, well, I think I want to get paid to do this. So I picked up a couple of like little gigs. And one of the gigs that I picked up though was for co-authoring an entire RPG, and I did that for Vajra Enterprises. The game was called Kid World, and in Kid World, you played little kids trying to survive in a post-apocalyptic area, and all of the adults are either dead or blind. And one of the things that you do is when you pick how old your kid is, how old your character is, the younger you are, like, you're not as strong, but the older you get, the more blind you get. So you're
Oh.
more physically capable, but you can't see, or you're weak, but you have all your faculties and all, you're not handicapped. So it was an interesting system. But what I learned from Brian St. Clair King is his name, was essentially he was like, all right, so this is my process of how I create a game. So I do this and this and this and this. And then I just did it all with him. And I was just like, that's all? Oh, I can do that. So then I started Third Eye Games. And that's basically the story. I know it was
Well,
long,
Origin
but
story.
um, well, I started out as a podcaster on All Games Considered, and that kind of got me. I was already a gamer, but that's kind of introduced me to the larger community.
Mm,
Um, I'd like to say it was a passion. I really would. I needed to make money for my family. I had a full-time job, but I needed some way to make extra money.
yeah.
And a lot of people are in this situation, but I was like, I can do a side hustle. um, and like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I did not have much of a plan. I had the bare bones of one, but I got out there, did the
Yeah.
podcast, and um, I'm I tend to be a shy person, but I got out there and met people and tried to talk with experienced people who were willing to mentor and help.
Mm,
And that's really a step that, I mean, you might think it's slow, but I think it's a world wealth of knowledge and it's worth
yeah.
it. But that's pretty much how I started. I looked for the situation was if it was free, I'd try it. I wouldn't always stick with it, but I'd
Yeah.
try
Yeah.
it. But it really was it was more of a financial thing for me at the beginning, but yeah, I really do have a passion about it.
Yeah.
Chris.
And then okay, so my origin story is I actually helped volunteer for Onyx Path's Gen Con booth for many, many, many years. It would only be like a couple hours because it was like I would come in for when people need bathroom breaks or whatever the case may be. And so that went on for many years. And then one of the individuals who works for Onyx Path, his name is Matt McElroy. He's a extremely good friend of mine. He wanted me to write kids guide or not kids guide. That's a whole other thing. There was a dark house, a Halloween kids adventure for an OGL game called First Fable,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, "Yeah, you're just gonna write it, and I'm gonna take care of everything else." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And so I wrote it, I got it to him, and then he was like, "Hey," he came back with this book, and it looks amazing. It looks like a coloring book with an adventure, and it is really awesome, and I love it. And Eloy was the person who did the layout, like we said before,
Mm-hmm.
and Eloy reached out, and we sat down. I think it was at a Gen Con.
I think it was.
I think it was at Gen Con.
Yeah.
I think it was at like 2016 or 17, something like that. 2016.
It was definitely an earlier year, so I think it was 16.
Yeah.
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 And you were like, "Hey, I have a project coming up. I think you'd be great on it." And so I gave him my business card, and 4 or 5 months after that, something like that, you reached out and was like, "Hey, I'm going to start this project. We're going to put it on Kickstarter." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So it ended up being the PIP system core book.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up writing a lot of it, a lot more than I thought I was ever going to be able to
Yeah.
write. Mind you,
Yeah.
I am not a writer; I'm a teacher, and so that really, really pushed me a lot. Um, and it ended up going on to win an Ennie.
Yeah.
And so all three of us have worked on it. So
Yeah.
uh,
And they called me up to the stage, but I made sure that you came up to the stage as well.
Yep.
I think I still have like that. Still have video
You
of me
shotgun
doing
I
that.
you shotgun
was
promoted me
taking
to
video,
line
I think.
developer on stage. You didn't even tell me that you were going to do that. I mean, yes, I would have said yes either way.
I don't like to give people permit. I don't give people a chance to say no to stuff. It's
But it was so funny because I walked off stage and my friend Sarah Kennedy was there cheering us on, and she was like, did he just do what I think you did? And I'm like, yeah, he did. I couldn't say no. I wasn't gonna say no, but yeah, it was just,
you
it
know,
was
I don't
really
even
funny.
think I realized that.
You
I think
didn't.
I think I
didn't.
had that conversation with you in my head, and
Yep,
I've done that
that's
before.
probably exactly what happened.
that happens to me quite a bit.
But from there, like, first of all, I still have people coming up to us and thanking us for that speech, um, because of like just the hope that it gave people.
Yeah.
Because Pip System is a small press
Mm-hmm.
game. It is an indie game,
Yep.
and a lot of people like to see the fact that we were able to go up there, get an award for it, and get recognized for it. So
Yeah.
from there, it kind of branched off into a whole bunch of things. So circling back to Onyx Path, I had worked the booth so much that every single developer actually thought that I had been working for somebody else as a writer. And so there was a midwinter one time where we were doing like an industry thing and Onyx Path hosted it, and we were going around and like 3 of the line developers were like, wait, you haven't written for us yet? I'm like, no. And they're like, I thought you were working for this developer. I thought you were working for this developer. And it went around the whole room.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, no. And so eventually I'm like, I've submitted stuff for you, and I understand, like sometimes my writing style isn't for everybody. Get it. But eventually they reached out, and I was able to work on the game that I started role playing with, which was Vampire the Masquerade, and I worked on Chicago by Night, which is
Nice.
like that. If you would have told 16-year-old me that I'd be working on Vampire the Masquerade, I would have probably flipped you off. And said, a whole bunch of swear words at you. But it was that, like you have stuff that you love, and then you have game lines that are like that's the thing, like your dream, and that was my dream.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
and that is kind of the thing with RPGs is like if you keep doing it, like eventually you'll get to do that thing that you got into it to do. I remember like beyond me just being able to create my own worlds and my own systems and having a ball doing that. One of my favorite IPs in the world is Firefly. And when they came out with the Firefly RPG, and they were like, yeah, and everybody was kind of liking the game. And then they were like, well, we have all these source books. And then Monica Valentinelli reached out and said, hey, Eloy, do you want to write on this? And I said, fuck yeah. Like, this is fucking Firefly.
Yeah,
And
right?
and I wrote on essentially every book except for the core book. I got to do a little bit of each book, at least a chapter. There was even one book where I got to write 2 sections because one of the writers flaked out, and Monica said, well, since you finished your section, you want to do this person's section too? And I said, hell yeah, I'll do their section.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that one is a cool one for me because since Monica was working so closely with Fox, who was the owner of the IP at the time,
Right.
and like all of the stuff that we wrote in the game had to go through like, is this canon and all that stuff. So the stuff in the game is canon, and like I got to like create new gangs. I created Zoe's cousin, which like no she has like there's nothing about her background in the show itself or in any of the other fiction or anything, and I was like, I created her cousin in the game. Like it's just fun that kind of stuff that you get to do that. I'm sure all the people who got to work on the Avatar RPG probably felt the same.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then
and writing for Uncle Iroh and like, oh my god, like
Oh.
Exactly. And honestly, kind of similar to you, Crystal. I felt the same way when I got to write on some vampire stuff because
yeah,
vampire was the thing that got me out of my riffs funk back in the day. And I remember because I was working with Eddie Webb and
yeah,
on the Bloodlines book, the V20 Bloodlines book,
which is a
and he was
fantastic
just
book.
like, "I'm gonna give you 2 clans," and I'm like, "Okay, give me some good ones." And he's like, "I'm gonna give you the Nagaraja and I'm going to give you the Bali." And I'm like, "You're going to give me the Bali?" Because I don't know if you know this about vampire fans. They don't play around with the Bali. Like,
Nope,
you got to get the
No.
Bali right. It's
nope.
like, and the fact that he trusted me with the Bali and the Nagaraja are awesome. Like, I loved writing them.
Yeah,
But the fact that he trusted me enough to give me the Bali, for me, that was a big sign of like, I've made it in the vampire world, beyond all this other things and acclaim and everything that I've done. Like, it's cool that I got to write for that thing that I love.
Well,
And yeah, so yeah.
and I too have worked for Onyx Path, and when I got to edit the some C20 changeling stuff, um,
Mm.
not all of it, but some of it, um, that was just, I was like, I am home. It was really cool. It was really cool. I really loved it.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I love working with all of the publishers I work with, but I mean, it was just kind of like,
That
oh,
was that was a good way
yeah.
to save
often,
that. That was a good way to save that,
yeah.
Carol. I like working with everybody, actually. I'm sorry.
I I
I
enjoy
do.
with my friends because my friends all are gamers and they love the stuff that
Hmm.
I work on, and
Yeah.
they support me. They don't understand my portion of Gen Con because my Gen Con looks very different than a gamer's.
Mm-hmm.
But they fully support me. I love using the threat, "Hey, be careful because my fan fiction will become your canon."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And then they remember what I've written on, and then they're like, "Oh."
Nice. Well, I
I
wanted to ask you guys something
Mm.
about
yeah,
um, setting your rates,
Mm-hmm.
because
yeah.
I know we're going to have some people who listen to this who are like, what should I charge? And I wrestled with that. Um,
I still do.
what's today? Yeah.
I think we
I,
all do. I think we all do. Even I do. Uh, I think my stance is usually because I've been doing this for so long. If they just ask me how much I'm charging, I usually give them an outlandish number, and I see if they'll pay it. If they
so can I
say
try that with
this,
you?
yeah, exactly. Well, and then you'll see that I don't pay it, right? So but but if they say this is how much we have
Yeah.
for the writing on this, then I gauge it within myself, like, am I interested enough to take that amount for this
Yeah.
project? And sometimes it's
Yeah,
not. It's not the amount that I would normally charge. Sometimes it's
Hmm.
much lower, but I like the project and I want my name attached to it because
Yeah.
I like it design wise, and like it inspires me. Like, I already have a ton of ideas. I just need to I want to give you these ideas now.
yeah.
Like, that's usually my standpoint. Is that, yeah. I'm like, if it's something I really like, I'll take
When you're,
less than my standard.
yeah. And okay. So when I was starting out, I charged a penny a word.
Mm-hmm.
And I did talk to a couple of people who had done editing before, and I had people help me with contracts. I'll say something about contracts here in a minute, but I actually did at one point attempt to say, I want to do for this project 2 cents a word.
Mm-hmm.
And they came back and said, no. It was
Yeah.
too much. They didn't have it, like you were saying, Eloy,
Yeah.
they just didn't have it in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, am I going to walk away? Am I going to take this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I weighed the different stuff, and I took it at a penny a word.
Yeah.
And one thing I will tell any freelancer, editor, writer, designer, whatever, contract.
Yeah.
Yep.
You want a contract,
Yep.
and if you have to come up with it, I'm
Yeah, no.
um
No.
There are resources out there specifically through
yes.
Gamma and through
Yeah.
the what is it, the freelancer, there's like a freelancer guild that's starting to form. And
Uh,
they will
there's
also have,
also
yeah,
the EFA, EFA.org, the Editorial Freelancers Association, if you are interested in editing.
and
Um,
SIFWA, Science
yes,
Fiction Writers
yes.
Association.
So,
I think the
but
other thing that I would add to
always
that.
have a contract.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Always have a contract. That's all I was going to say. What were you going to
Yes.
say?
I was just going to add on top of that is that, and this is a big thing for me, is if you are working with a publisher or a
Mhm.
freelancer and they're squeamish about talking about money, then that means to me that they might be squeamish about paying me.
Yep.
So like
Yeah.
you should know how much you're going to get paid, and they
And
should not be
when.
shy about telling you and when 100%, but it shouldn't be like a secret
And hammer
that
that
they're
out.
keeping,
Yep.
right? It should be like, hey, we want you for
Right.
this project. It pays this much. This is when we'll
Right.
pay you, and this is the assignment. Here's the style
Yeah.
guide. Do you want to do it? Yes, cool. Let's go. Right? Like if you have to fight to know how much you're getting paid, that's annoying. Like
Mhm.
it's
Yep.
really annoying.
Or
I
when.
the
Then
other
that's another thing.
The
so
win is a big deal. Like I think I got paid like a couple of years ago. I got paid for a thing I wrote like 6 years earlier.
Oh,
Like it was
oh my God.
ridiculous. Like and honestly, I had written it and completely forgotten that I had written
Oh
it.
no.
And I got like this little check. It was not even a big. It was just like a little check. And I was just like, "What is this?" I was like, "Oh, that's what?" It was one of those weird moments that I was like, "Okay, well, I mean, at least they finally paid." But I
right.
mean, it had been such a long time ago. I had completely forgotten about it.
I will also say, I'm going to throw in here, never work
Mhm.
for free,
Mm,
but I am cool with working for trade. For instance, if you're creating community content
Yeah.
and you want somebody to edit, maybe you have other skills that you can provide that person. I'm okay with that
Mm.
as long as like everybody agrees on the table as to what's equal
yeah.
for that.
Barter's a valid system, but
Um,
I do agree the don't work for free thing. Exposure kills.
yep.
Yeah.
The other
I
thing The other thing I'm going to say with pay is that editing pay looks very different than writing pay because
mhm,
Yes.
editors look at all of the words and writers generally work with a small chunk.
yeah.
So when you see Carol saying 1 cent a word, and I'm going to say never work for anything less than 6 cents a word when it comes to writing.
Right.
And that's like the bare minimum. Um, that is
But it
very
is.
very different, like because editing is a
Yeah,
very different ball game when it
it
comes to
is.
those because that when you tell an editor, oh, I want you to look at
Mhm.
95,000 word documents and
Right.
I'm gonna pay you 2 cents a word.
That's $1,800,
Yeah,
$1,900. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
And
So
so it looks very
it's,
very different,
it
Yeah.
does.
and you have to take that into consideration.
Yes.
When it comes to accepting stuff that's lower, again, like you got to feel for, is this something that you're passionate about? I have
Hmm.
taken lower. I've been offered 1 cent a word and I said absolutely not.
Wait, for writing?
I have to
Yeah.
admit, so
Oh my gosh.
I started in the dark ages, like 2006, and my very first gig was a third of a cent of a word.
Oh
Like, it
my
was
goodness.
ridiculous, right?
That's
But back then, 1 cent a word was actually like that was a
was
lot at the
high. Yeah, that
time.
was a lot.
White Wolf, I think, paid 3 cents a word, and that was
Hmm.
mind blowing to be able to
Yep.
get paid that for writing. Um,
Yeah.
but what I'll say about free is that because I have people as a publisher, I have people who are like, I wrote this thing, I'll work for you for free, and I go, no, you won't.
Yep.
Like, like if I want you to come and work with
No.
me, I'm gonna pay you.
Yep.
because
Yeah.
I would expect to get paid. I'm
Yep.
not going,
Yeah.
I'm going to treat everybody like I would want to be treated, right? I'm not expecting anybody to do anything for free.
Yep. I had people try to do that with me
Yeah.
with the primers, the PIP system primers. They're like, I want to write. I have this idea. I want to write. I'll write it for free. And I'm like, absolutely, you will not.
Well, yeah. Well, I
Right.
mean, if you're going to write it for free, then put it in community content,
Yeah. Put it
right?
in.
Yeah.
Throw it up in the
Yeah.
community content. That's totally fine. But
Yeah.
otherwise,
Exactly. Yeah, I just had somebody in the Discord just the other day who was like, I have this adventure for Ninja Crusade. How do I, what would I do to publish that or whatever? And I said, well, send it to me. And then if it's good enough, then we'll make it official and it's all good. Right? Otherwise, you just, you put it up on your website or whatever. As long as there's
Ooh.
not any checkout
Yep.
portion of it, even if it's checkout for free, as long as there's no checkouts, then it's fine. I don't have a community content for Ninja Crusade, so it's
Yet.
like you can put it up on your website. You
Yeah.
can just share it here on the Discord, or whatever. So yeah.
One of the things that I think we should talk about too is the difference between being hired via contract, self-publishing,
Mm-hmm.
community content,
Yeah.
and submissions.
Okay.
Because like we've all done submissions for like Onyx Path and stuff like that. We know like there are companies that are very strict on their submissions. There are companies that absolutely do not take submissions at all whatsoever. Or only have open calls every once in a while.
Yeah.
And so I feel like having that discussion and knowing like the difference.
So what were the four
between them.
categories? Self-publishing,
community content,
mm-hmm.
hired by contract,
contract,
and then submissions.
and then subs. All right. So the first thing is with the subs, anything that you submit basically becomes their property regardless. So that's something that you definitely want to keep track
in
of.
mind.
If with most companies, some companies, like honestly, like if you submit something to me and I like it, then I will hire you to write it officially. If I don't like it, I'm not going to steal it because I didn't like it. So it's like you for me at least you don't have to worry about it. But some
Eloy
people will
kind of
say that
wears
they
his
don't like
opinions
it.
on his sleeve.
Exactly. But some people will say they don't like it and then steal it. So
Yeah.
it is a thing. But anytime that you do a submission, you have to obviously understand that you're submitting that with the idea of getting hired. So don't put your best stuff in your submission. I know a lot of people say put your best stuff so that you can get hired. Don't put your best stuff though. Put your like second best, third best stuff into a submission because once you give it in, it might not be yours anymore. So that's a big deal.
Don't submit your own game, by the way.
Yeah, don't
because
do that.
there's a legality there because then you lose your original game.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
Working for contract is where I do a lot of that, where I get
do
hired to work things. And for me, those are things that I enjoy doing. But obviously, the understanding is that they're paying me this amount for me to come in and do this thing. And then I do that thing, and then I'm allowed to walk away from it. And I don't necessarily need to think about it anymore after the fact if I don't want to.
Yeah.
So that is fun sometimes, and other times it's, again, I forget entirely that I even did it, and then you pay me 6 years later. Community content is a little bit different, right? So community content is you create it and you put it up on DriveThruRPG under the rules of the community content, and then you then share any profits that you would make with the publisher of that game line, which is pretty cool because it gives you a lot of freedom for you to do it. And I mean, it doesn't make your stuff official, but it kind of makes it official. But also, the thing with that, though, with community content, I believe the rule is they can also take your stuff anytime they want to as well. Isn't that a rule in there?
No, not that I'm aware of.
No.
Okay, well then strike that.
It is the it is the understanding that you may put something up on community content and the publisher at some point may publish something similar.
Okay.
And that's the understanding that will might happen.
I remember reading, and maybe they changed it, but I remember reading the D&D ones. and the D&D ones because they're really strict about their stuff anyway.
D&D is a whole other ball game. The DM's Guild is a whole other ball game,
Yeah.
and they are very strict.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they say if you put it up there,
That
they
one's
can rip it off if
probably-
they
yeah.
want. Anybody else though, because again, we're a small community, we're a small
Yeah.
industry. We're not trying to be dicks. Like it's
Yeah.
we're really not. And then self-publishing is honestly that's where I live mostly.
Mhm.
It allows you to create anything you want and put it out. And every game has an audience, and it might be a small audience, but you can find your audience, and you will make less money, but you will make less money, but you also make more money. I will say that I've made more money publishing than I ever did as a freelancer, because, well, but also because I'm consistent. Well, I used to be consistent, but also I used to be consistent with my releases, right? So
Yeah.
I would release lots of stuff. So if API wasn't selling and it wasn't hitting at the moment, then Ninja Crusade would. And if Ninja Crusade wasn't selling at the moment, then Pip is. And if Pip isn't selling, then AMP is. So like I have a lot of different game lines, a lot of products that I've released. So like I'm constantly getting sales notifications, which is great, even when I'm not releasing new stuff. But every time I do release new stuff, that's the fun part, because then I release a new thing and then it brings attention to everything that I've already released. And so self-publishing, it's what is it? It's a marathon, right? It's a marathon. So you'll start off with one product and it won't sell well. And then you'll put a second one out. And then, oh, wait, it's interesting. The second one sold okay and it brought more sales to the first one. And now you release the third one and it does all of that. And then you're where I'm at, where I have like 50 things out, you know.
Editing is somewhat different in that you're not creating something, but again, refining.
Yeah.
And that's the pay structure is different, but I would say always contract with community content. It is different because that's, I think, where the barter system can come in.
Yeah.
If you want to do something for a lower rate or a flat rate,
I should have
you've
clarified
really
that.
got to balance.
Yeah, the barter system should only be for like community content, not for actual professional published stuff.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Especially again, because like me as the publisher, if I say, sure, I'll trade you me looking at a thing for you, and then you're releasing this thing, like I'm gonna just make money off of the thing you wrote for years, right?
Yeah.
You should make some money off of that. Hey, Carol, so what does submissions look like for an editor?
That is
I actually don't know the answer to that.
tricky thing because some publishers have, here, take this editing test, and they will actually have a test piece written that they want you to edit. And there isn't much for editor submissions.
Yeah.
All you can do, and what I've done is I've put a website together that is split by publisher, and I put down links to drive through to all the books that I've edited. And that is really all you can do, because you are support. You didn't write this, you didn't design this, you didn't publish this, but you did work on it.
Yeah.
And that's the best way I've come up with to highlight and show off what I've done. And yes, it was a group effort, but my effort did contribute.
Yeah.
And that's really, so far, it's the best way I've realized to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, there's a lot of writers who thank their editor before they thank their family. It's like it's just it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
If you have an editor that it works well with you and everything, that they are worth their weight in gold. Like I have done all that I can to keep Carol to keep her coming back and working with me.
Of course.
I love when Carol is editing and I'm in the thing and I'm like, oh, I know exactly what she's doing. I'm just clicking and accept because I know that she
Yeah.
knows my voice and she knows what I'm looking for, and I'm like, yeah, I trust exactly what she's doing.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
appreciate that. Really. I mean,
So
it's the word of mouth, I think, for editors is a big thing.
Oh yeah, referrals. Yeah,
And
referrals are a big deal. In my
referrals are important for any freelancer.
Yeah, in
oh
my
yeah.
class, just again, I ended it 30 minutes before here. One of the last questions that the people asked me, my students asked me, was like, "How do we find an editor?" And I said, "Oh, I'll refer you all to Carol. It works out, right?" And I was like, "And I know other editors if you don't just want to use mine, but Carol's very good. So let me know if you need an editor."
Appreciate
And because
that.
that's my job as Carol's friend and person who hires her sometimes, is to make sure that when I'm not hiring her, that other people are hiring her.
I appreciate that.
I want to keep her in business, because if people aren't hiring her and she stops doing editing, oh my god, then I don't have an editor anymore.
Well, I don't foresee myself doing that anytime soon.
That is good to hear.
So that kind of leads me actually into another part of this discussion, because I have had a lot of people over the years who come to my panels or listen to the podcast, to the mentorship series that I ran,
Mhm,
and have said, I am very socially awkward. I struggle with conversation. I struggle with meeting people. I
Hmm.
struggle with conventions. Like there's a lot of anxiety and there's a lot of dread around that type of thing. We have all done the pass our business cards out to
mhm.
everybody at Gen Con. In fact, I just said I have my business cards. I think they got delivered today for Gen
Yay.
Con because I waited till the last minute because ADHD is great. Um but like I'm extremely good at networking,
Yeah.
and I make sure to use those skills to help promote the people that I know are really good, like Carol and Eloy. And I have several writers for that worked on Pip System with me that I would
Mhm,
refer for any game.
Hmm.
mhm.
So how do you go about as either starting to understand networking, or what do you do as a baby freelancer or wannabe freelancer to get your name out there that isn't just business cards?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of a gimme. I'm gonna say kind of a gimme because a lot of people do use business cards.
Hmm.
Um, but or like if you can't get to conventions,
Hmm.
or suggestions for when you do get to conventions, what do you do?
S-
Uh,
So, do you want to go? You go. You can go, Carol.
oh,
I talk a
sorry. No,
lot.
well, you were talking about, we met at Gen Con after you heard me on the podcast,
Hmm.
and I've run games at conventions. I am shy. I am. But I tried to get over it by this small local convention, present a panel, make myself GM something,
Mm.
get myself out there. And that concept works when you network too. If
Yeah.
you can get to the convention, strike up a conversation. If you don't know what to talk about, start
Hmm.
with the business card, but then, do you notice one of the books? Are you a fan of the books? Are you a fan of the world?
Hmm.
I mean, some people don't jump in, do not jump in to let me tell you about my character. Do not do that.
Oh, please don't. That's awkward for everybody.
But I mean, it's look for commonalities.
Yeah.
Look for something, even if it's a small thing, to discuss. But
W-
do not overstay your welcome. And that is
Yeah.
something that you learn. And that's
Yeah.
why I did panels. That's why I did games at first, because that's got a set time structure.
Yeah.
And until you learn to engage and disengage a little bit more, um, I go with the time structure.
Yeah. What I'll say is, as a designer of games, I don't necessarily look for tell me about your character from people who want to work with me, but I love it when people come up to my booth and tell me, "Oh, I was playing API and I made this harpy character and they were doing this cool thing." Like, I like that because it tells me
Mhm.
that like the thing I designed allowed them to have that fun moment. So I would say don't do that if you're trying to get a job, but if you just want to come by and talk, then yes,
Yes,
definitely do that for
I
me.
will agree. I will agree with that. If you're not trying to
Yeah.
get a job and you just want to talk, that's an absolute great
Yeah.
way to connect.
Oh yeah.
But then also, as Carol said, don't overstay your welcome. Tell us about your character and then move on. Don't tell us about your character and then the other character and then another character and another character. What I will say is my trick to getting over my social anxiety, which I don't necessarily have that much of anymore because now I'm a known entity in the industry. But back in the day when I was a little bit more awestruck of everybody and very, imposter syndromed, uh, I hung out with somebody who was shameless. So if you are a socially awkward person, hang out with somebody who has zero shame. And for me, it was Sarah, our mutual friend.
Oh yeah,
And Sarah would essentially just drag me everywhere, and like
Sarah still drags me everywhere.
yeah, she would
Yeah.
carry my business cards for me and make sure that people get them. Like, I mean, it's a big like she was my biggest advocate, and it made it a lot easier for me. If somebody else broke the ice and made the introduction,
Mhm.
then I can
Mhm.
go crazy after that. It's just that barrier of saying hello and the
The
introduction
icebreaker,
that's
yeah.
always my biggest
Oh.
thing. So having somebody there who's just like, "Hey, you, this is Eloy. Talk to him," right? Like it's like, okay, cool, right? Like it works out great. I would say the other thing that I do is when I'm at a convention and I'm not one of those people who's like people are walking by and I'm like, hey, come try my game, or anything like that, right? Like, but if I am in my space at the booth and you walk up to the booth, then that breaks the ice. That gives me permission to talk to you, and essentially don't walk up if you don't want me to talk to you, right? So so for me that's a big thing for me, is having a place where if people go there, I am allowed to talk to them.
Yeah.
And then it alleviates a lot of my nervousness when it comes to starting conversations.
The Sarah Kennedy that we're talking about is also the same Sarah Kennedy that was on the Horror Junior podcast, that was episode that dropped, when was that? On Saturday.
Well, I got to go back
So
and listen to that one.
Yeah.
yeah, so she was on that one too. So um my suggestion, and this is one that I did, and it helped me a lot, is to find panels where they're talking about freelancing or writing or specific company or anything like that, and attend those panels. Anytime that I host panels, I have a couple of people in a lot of the conventions who I will see them at every single panel that I host. I have learned at least their face. I
Mm-hmm.
am I am face name blind. I will recognize faces, but names will take a while to come back to me. Um, if you are one of those people that are at those panels and you have been at my panels for a while, please know I do know who you are. I just don't know who you are, and I apologize for that. That's my brain. Um, but they a lot of them took a long time to start asking questions, and they would just show up and listen, and that's totally fine. Eventually they'd start talking, they'd come up to me and everything like that, and at some point, if or when they are ready, I would probably hire them, because I know that they have listened to everything that I've said. A lot of the stuff that I share in my panels is the stuff that I tell my freelancers that I want to see when I'm hiring for them for projects and stuff
Mm.
like that. And so I know that they are going to understand who I am and what are my expectations. And we can have those conversations that might be tough, or they can be more comfortable asking me questions, or if they're struggling, they will understand like how to approach me if they need help. So that would be my suggestion, is to go to panels, to just listen.
Yeah.
Gen Con has the Writers Symposium, which is a fantastic track.
Mhm.
That I recommend that any freelancer do at least one of the panels that are there, because their panelists are just amazing. So
Yeah. And then the last tip for freelancers would be like, don't suck.
Yes.
Be a good writer. Don't try to be a writer if you're not a writer.
I
It's a very sarcastic. I'm sorry.
I thought you were serious. I was like, I mean, so
I'm partially serious.
Yep. Yes, there's partial, like, if you know that you cannot write, maybe writing is not for you. Maybe there's
I've gotten
something else.
I've gotten ridiculous
I have
submissions
too.
before.
Yeah.
um,
I've gone more towards the editing as I realized I am more of an editor.
yeah, and that's totally fine. If writing is not your thing, that's totally fine. But don't and if you are struggling with writing, get coaching, get practice,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
do
Yes.
things that push your writing boundaries, get stuff that help you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have a whole bunch of stuff, recommendations, in the show notes that our panelists have given, with links and everything like that. And a lot of these I use and
Yeah.
have used
Mm-hmm.
to help me get better at writing.
And one of the links that I gave to Crystal is also to the Central Michigan University website, where you can
Mm-hmm.
actually sign up for courses in order to evolve your game design talents. So yeah,
Yay.
there's that.
The other
Yeah.
thing too is that if you cannot afford to go to college to get an actual, like, a physical degree, you can
Mm-hmm.
audit classes.
Yes.
And there
Yeah.
are writing classes that you can audit.
Yeah, you can audit.
And there are also online classes. There are
Mm-hmm.
free online classes. I'm fairly certain there's a series. I cannot remember where it's what I think it's. Oh, it's one of the Big 10 Ivy League schools. I want to say it's, where is it? Cornell? Cornell Online? Something like that. I'll get the link and I'll put it in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
But there is like a really big school that actually has auditable classes for you to be able to take, and free online classes for you to be able to take and get a certificate for. So
Nice.
I'll post those on there. So
There you go.
Yeah, and the Editorial Freelancers Association has a set of recorded webinars about getting into the editing industry.
awesome.
Um, so check that out.
Very cool. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna be coming up on our time, because I know we will be able to chat for like 3-4 hours if I do not wrangle the ADHD gremlins.
Today is also Wing Day, National Wing Day, and I ordered wings and they showed up while we're here. So after we're done here, I get to go have some Buffalo Wild Wings.
Nice.
So I'm
Sweet.
excited.
I watched Deadpool. I watched Deadpool Wolverine today, so
I watched that
I'm-
on Saturday because I didn't want any spoilers.
Yeah, we did too.
it was so good. I
It
loved
was very good.
no spoilers.
No spoilers.
But
It was
No,
good.
I
It was
will
very
say
good.
we took our youngest, but our youngest is 22.
Exactly. I found a sitter for my youngest who is 8.
Okay. Yeah.
all right.
Before
So
I cause an uproar, he's 22.
all right. So to wrap up, what I'm going to have everybody do is to just kind of reintroduce yourself, tell everybody where they can find you on social media, and then as well as if you want to tell people where they can see you at Gen Con again, to remind everybody. And then I want you to ask the question, or answer this question, okay? And that is, if you were to give one piece of advice to past you, what would that be?
Okay.
I wrote it down so I don't forget it when it's my turn.
So, who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
I'm Carol Darnell. I'm a freelance editor. You can find my work at caroldarnell.wordpress.com. And I will be at the Ennies Friday night at GenCon. And as far as social media, um, I I don't really have much of a presence right now, so it's just my website. Just my
Okay,
website.
that's fair.
And as far as the one piece of advice, people may say it sounds corny, but small steps are still steps. And I learned that the hard way. And but you are going forward.
All
Oh
right.
yeah, yeah, 100%. Mine is I'm Eloy Lasanta. You can find my stuff at thirdeyegames.net, and or you can just type my name into the internet, and I'm everywhere. Um, yeah, so there's that. So that's game design. If you want to listen to my music, you can hit straysoftheworldmusic.com,
It's
and
really good.
you can
It
check that
is.
stuff out. I have a new album coming out pretty soon. Actually, I'm coming out with one more single before the official album release, but that's
Ooh.
neither here nor there. Um, so yeah, so there's that. And again, I have the designing an RPG in an hour on Thursday. I have the Gen Con and CMU Applied Games design learning program on Friday, and then I have the navigating romance and RPGs on Sunday. So definitely, I believe the designing the RPG in an hour is sold out, but I believe that there's tickets for the other two still. So, but yeah, and then otherwise, come see me at booth 1929 or 2029 in the Studio 2 aisle. Or at the CMU Central Michigan University booth that will be in the entrepreneurial alley. So,
Awesome. And then your answer to the question?
oh yeah, my answer to the question honestly was Carol stole mine technically.
Oh.
Essentially what I was going to say, and this was actually something I told my students earlier today as well, is I said, make yourself those little goals, right? Because I remember when I had gone to Dragon Con for like a decade, and then I like started publishing, and I would go there. I started doing game design, and I would go there and I would see people up doing panels, and I'd be like, these people are terrible. Like I've been doing this for so little time, and I'm like, these people don't know what they're talking about. So I said, I'm not coming back to Dragon Con until they invite me back as a guest, and that was like my goal. And then like 3 years later, I got the call and they invited me back as a guest, and it was awesome, right? So like it's awesome to make those little goals for yourself.
Yeah.
I also had like a one-sided rivalry with another game designer who gave my game a bad review. So my goal was to then make a game that like I would basically follow that game designer's career, and I would just like, and I just kept watching, and I'm like, they keep designing these terrible things. Why did you think my thing was terrible? So I would just kept making sure that my stuff was just better than theirs every year. So it's like I was very petty,
Spiteful success.
very very petty, also spiteful. But yeah, I mean it's a thing, right? It's like the way that I continue going is by making those small goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily like, I want to be the biggest publisher in the world, or anything like that. It's like, nah, like, I want to create a kids game line, and that's where Pip System kind of came from. I want to make a game that uses cards. That's where Sins of the Father came
Yeah.
from. Like challenge yourself and make those goals, and
Mhm.
then achieve them. And if you achieve like a whole bunch of little goals, then you look at it from like, a macro level, and you're like, wow, I did a ton of things. Like, this is pretty awesome, right? Like, that's how I get over the fact that, like, I haven't won in any vote, and I haven't I'm not like a super big wig. I'm like a medium sized wig. One day I'm going to be a big wig, but I'm mostly kidding here because I'm very happy with where I'm at. But but no, and honestly, and then take the opportunities as they come, because a lot
Yeah.
of your success will be luck, as
Yep.
mine was.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
honestly, I am teaching a game design course at Central Michigan University because I was lucky enough to be part of a design team because I was part of another design team with the person who put that second one together. But I was only on that one because I shared a booth that was next to the guy who put together that side team. And then, but actually, I met him through another person. Like, it was basically, it was like, 7 degrees of Kevin
Eloy is
Bacon
the king
that
of
made
side
it so that I was
quests.
seriously, seriously. And that's the thing, right? It's like when the opportunities come up, take them.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
eventually, again, like that might not be the end goal, but it might help you get to that end goal.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, and I am the one of the co-hosts for Darker Days Radio. My name is Crystal Mazur. You can find me on social media, for all social media at Body and Soul 152, and then my website is thegeekypanda.com. And then my piece of advice is to learn where to micromanage when you need to, and learn where to let yourself go. Because I absolutely need to micromanage my like placement in where I am in projects, and when I need to get paid for things. However, I don't need to micromanage, every little minute of my day or anything like that, because
Yeah.
the whole writing 1,000 words a day thing does not work for me,
Mhm.
because of my family life, and I'm a teacher, so a lot of my writing happens during the summer or at night, and so some nights I just can't get to writing, so I don't micromanage myself there, but for the other things I have a spreadsheet.
But you know what? The thing about that is I've always said this, and this is not advice because I follow this advice. This isn't advice for my old self. This is advice now for other people's old selves. Is literally though, you will make time for the things that are important in your life.
Yep.
When I was designing my first game, I went to work. I would wake up and I'd spend some time with my family. I'd go to work. I'd come home. I'd spend a little bit more time with my family, and then I'd stay up until 2 writing. It's
Yeah.
and then I do it again and again and again until my game was done.
Yep.
Because it was that important to me. If it's important to you, you will make the time to make that thing happen.
Yep. All right, and then in closing, thank you for everyone for being on the Darker Days Radio podcast. You can find all of our social media on our link tree, which is going to be linked in our show notes. You can email us at darkerdaysradio@gmail.com. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, Threads, Blue Sky. We don't really have an X presence, but we have an account there. I think we might be on Mastodon. I don't know. But all that is at Darker Days Radio. We also have on Tabletop, YouTube, Twitch, and our Discord. So thank you, Eloy and Carol, for coming on and
Thank you for inviting us.
talking so much about the industry and everything like that. And I really appreciate everything that you guys do. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.